in matter because matter doesn't really exist. It only exists for us as something real because we identify with it. And then because we identify, it seems to have substance, it seems to have reality. Because we define ourself in terms of some material object, namely the body. Then we think whatever happens to the body happens to me. But we think that. It's not necessarily real. It's just like someone who goes in the cinema and they're watching a movie, you know, and when the bad guy jumps out of the shadows and hits the good guy over the head, we go, ooh! Because to some degree we're identifying with the good guy. We're identifying with the character. And so we naturally flinch when something happens. You know, or, you know, the heroine is breaking up with her boyfriend, you know, and we're sitting there, boo-hoo, you know. Because we identify with the characters. To some degree, we project our self onto them. This is called identification. And it's a temporary form of insanity. So let's try to get out of this insanity, and come to the reality.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes. Oh, Florian has a question. Look out.
I have typed it already in. Are there spatial dimensions in the spiritual world? Or where are we as souls actually located? Where is this all happening when matter actually doesn't exist?
Everywhere. What does Krishna say? Second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The soul is all-pervading. What does that mean? We can be anywhere that we project ourselves to be.
So this
Brahman is everything and everywhere. And Brahman is one. So anywhere that is within Brahman is where we are, which is everywhere.
So that means that when Brahman equals the universal quantum wave function, then, and the soul is all-pervading, it actually has access to all the different experiences available in everything.
That's right.
And so we let the superposition, the quantum superposition, condense to a single experience with this material
by looking
relative.
in a particular way.
Mm-hmm.
What determines whether the Schrödinger's cat is dead or alive? How we measure it. How we look at it. Why does the anthropic principle hold that the universe that we happen to find ourselves in just happens to be adjusted exactly right for our existence? Why is that so? Because of the way we measure the existence. Because of the way we look at existence. We find ourselves here. Another soul who looks at existence in a different way finds himself in the heavenly planets. A demoniac soul may find himself in the hellish planets. A liberated soul will find himself in Vaikuntha planets. But it's all the same thing. It's all Brahman. It just depends on how we look at it. See? We can walk down the street and we can think, you know, oh yeah, this is my turf. I'm enjoying this, you know. I'm the leader of the pack and all of that. And then we try for material dominance and we accrue all this karma and, oh, you know, so many things. Or we can walk down the same exact street and we can think, oh, this is God's creation and God's energy, and look at all these people screwing up because they think that they're the body, but Hare Krishna, I'm a spirit soul. You know, and we can be detached from it. And then it doesn't affect us in the same way. It doesn't engage us in the same way either. We become transcendental to it. So even though we are temporarily now in the material world, it doesn't have to affect us like it affects people who are identified with their body. We can be transcendental. And that's why it's said that for a self-realized soul, there's no suffering. Because a self-realized soul doesn't identify with the body. Not the material body, anyway. Maybe he identifies with the spiritual body and sees himself in that way and manifests those moods and those activities as far as possible in the present material body. So yeah, the universal quantum wave is by definition unobservable. We can't see the whole thing. The Brahman is infinite, unlimited, but our ability to cognize is limited. It's finite. So that means we can't perceive the entire Supreme Brahman. We can only perceive that part of it that we interact with. Okay? So that means, according to the way that we approach God, that is the aspect or the side or the particular manifestation of God that we see. If we want to approach God as the universal form of the material manifestation, what do we see? The material world. If we approach God as the Brahman, what do we see? The unlimited light. If we approach Him as the Lord of Vaikuntha, then we see the Vaikuntha planets. If we approach Him as Govinda, we see the Goloka planet. And if we approach Him as a young lion... So these things are very confidential because they only affect the individual who is doing it. If I think of a number, you can't tell me what number I'm thinking of. I have to reveal it to you, only then you can know. Because consciousness is individual. That is one of the aspects of consciousness. It's personal, it's individual. It has an identity factor. I'm different from you, you're different from him, he's different from somebody else. So each individual experiences the world according to the way that they interact with the world or measure it. You know, when we say the world, we mean the universal quantum wave function, or Paramatma, or Brahman. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's an unobservable. Why? Because it contains all possibilities. And we're limited, so we can only experience one possibility at a time. And the particular possibility that we experience is determined by how we interact with, how we approach, and how we act towards the complete whole. In whatever system of ontology that we're working in. The point is, if we accept the ontology of the Vedas, the spiritual ontology, we have so many more possibilities. We don't have to live just in the material world. We can go to the spiritual world where we don't have to change our form every 80 or 90 years. It's very convenient. It's also much more pleasant because we're with the Supreme Lord. We're not with these limited, finite people who make mistakes and have all kinds of imperfections. So in that way, we find a way to interact with the world of all possibilities, or the Brahman, that brings us more pleasure than trying to be independent and identifying with a material form in the material world. It's an ontological issue. It's like the world we see depends on how we look at it. So it follows that we want to look at the world in a way that opens up more possibilities and gives us more empowerment for our own personal self-realization. And that way is the esoteric teaching or Vedanta or devotional service or however you want to call it, this Vedic truth. Because we see that the people who accept this truth have a richer, more fulfilling, happier existence than the people who simply talk about it or simply pretend to look into it but don't really accept it in their hearts. We want to accept it on a very deep level. We want to make a profound commitment to this ontology. You notice I'm not saying that you should make a big commitment to an organization. You shouldn't make a big commitment to a particular group or something like that. Well, that might help to learn. So just like if you want to be a doctor, you can go to this college or you can go to that college, you can go to this medical school or that medical school, but when you get the license at the end, you're a doctor. Doesn't matter which school you went to. So if you can find a bona fide school of the Vedic disciplic lineage, it doesn't matter whether this school or that school or somebody else. The point